I'm going to be delivering this second booster session to you today. So we're going to be talking about discipline and particular setting limits. So we do these booster session home visits because we want to offer parents more support so they feel really confident in using the positive parenting strategies that you guys learn in your sessions, Family Academy sessions. So in today's session, we'll focus on how to set clear limits for your child. So first we'll review the rules you came up with in class, and then we'll create new limits and rules for a specific routine. So we'll talk about mealtime in this one. We'll talk through a scenario together, and then we'll problem solve around ways to solve the issue. And then we'll wrap up the session, and you can set a goal for how you're going to use what we talk about today in the coming week. So first, let's review the key messages for the session. So the first is, if you make your expectations clear to your son or daughter beforehand, it will be easier for them to know what's expected of them. The second is, we always want to try and phrase our rules in a positive way so that your child is reminded of what he should be doing rather than what he shouldn't be doing. And then third, whenever possible, try and give your child choices. So for example, do you want to brush your teeth first or put your pajamas on? So that can be choices you give before bedtime. Okay, so the first activity we're going to do is review some of the house rules that you came up with in class. So do you have a couple examples?
No hitting is a rule, and lean over your plate and chew with your mouth closed.
Okay, those are two good rules. So I noticed in the first rule, no hitting, I know in your sessions you talk about do versus stop commands. So is there a way that we can rephrase that to be in more positive language? So instead of no hitting, can you think of another way we can rephrase that?
Like, keep your hands to yourself, even if you're really mad.
Yeah, so that's good. Yep, so keep your hands to yourself would be one. And then your second one was?
Lean over your plate and chew with your mouth closed.
Yeah, and that's a good one because that's already, the child knows what's expected of them from that rule. Okay, so now we're going to think about setting limits and rules around a specific routine like mealtime. So what are some age-appropriate things that you would expect from your youngest son versus some of the older kids that you have?
Well, I have a rule that, couple rules, you can't get up and down from the table, and then I expect them to like lean over their plate when they're eating, just because it helps me manage like the mess with all of my kids. Can be a lot to deal with when I'm trying to do so many things after dinner, trying to clean up or whatever. So I guess I have the same rules, but I just apply them differently. So my older kids, they can sort of maintain it and follow that a little bit better, and I expect that. For my 3-year-old, I expect her to lean over her plate and I show her, but when she doesn't do it, then I kind of give her more grace, couple more reminders. And then with my toddler, he's still in a high chair, so it's easy for him to lean over his plate. It doesn't, it works pretty well. And then when he gets older, I'll do the same thing when he starts sitting independently at the table.
Yeah, so it sounds like you adjust the limits depending on the age of your kids, right? To make them appropriate.
Yeah, and so sometimes after a couple of reminders, if my 3-year-old doesn't get it, then I'll give her a choice. Like, you can either lean over your plate or you need to get down. And so she is learning, and she'll say, okay, I'm ready to try it again, and then she'll get a chance again to come back to the table and try to follow the rules.
Yeah, great. Those are great examples. Okay, so the next thing we're going to move on to is talking about a specific scenario. So having clear rules in place and discussing them with your kids will help them know what's expected of them, like we've already discussed. So it's really important to stay consistent with these rules because your child or children are, going to test the limits, of course. So remember that testing the limits is normal for young children, and it's something that parents should expect from their kids. So let's talk about a potential issue that could come up before bedtime, and then we'll discuss how to remain consistent and set clear limits. So the scenario we're going to talk about is, How would you set a limit if your child becomes fussy once bedtime is announced? So let's talk about, if you want to, we could talk about bedtime, what that looks like for the 3-year-old, and maybe how that differs from your youngest. So
Yeah.
if the 3-year-old becomes fussy when bedtime's announced.
Yeah, so I try to give them like a warning, like a half hour before, letting them know that, pretty soon we're gonna have to clean up and what we're gonna do and move on to the next thing, and we're gonna be getting ready for bed, and then try to throw out something that they might be looking forward to, like reading a story, or I think that's pretty much all they look forward to at bedtime. So yeah, like we get to, if we are on track, then we get to read a story.
So why do you give them a warning beforehand?
Just because it's they get to think about it and prepare themselves. I'm like that too.
Yeah.
Even like if I just have to suddenly stop what I'm doing, it's harder to transition.
Yeah, so it eases the transition.
Mhm.
Okay. And then you give them something to look forward to if they go to bed without fussing.
Yeah.
Which in your case is reading a story together.
Mhm.
Right?
I also try to do like if then. So like if we have a good night and if we go to sleep on time, then in the morning we'll feel good and we'll have a good morning. And then there's like incentives that are tied to having a good morning. So with my older kids, they get it a little more, but even my 3-year-old, like even if she doesn't fully get it, like I keep saying it, and so I think she's starting to understand it more and more. Like if we have a good night, these things add up to having a good night, which leads to a good morning.
So it sounds like you do that every night then, being
Mhm.
consistent with even using that if-then language so
Mhm.
she's familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's great that you pointed out that she's not getting it yet, but that you keep on saying that you're staying consistent with that message.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so now we're going to wrap up this session with, if you can think about a goal that you'd like to set for yourself this week in terms of setting limits with your kids.
Just maybe working on making sure I'm consistent, like at dinner time, when I'm like on top of it, I'll say before we eat, like what are the things that we need to do to stay at the table or to, whatever, remain at the table. And then they'll say like 3 things, the same 3 things, but sometimes when I'm really busy, I forget to like set it up. And so just, I guess this week I'll try to say that every time we're at the table.
So a reminder of what the house rules are around mealtime.
Yeah.
Okay, before you start. I
Yeah.
think that sounds like a great goal.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.